Welcome to Silent Queen's Reckoning. I'm so glad you could join us today. Now let's dive right into the story.
Chapter 1. Clara Whitmore saw her husband kissing another woman beside the international arrivals gate, while the sign above him still flashed the flight number of her parents' plane. For 3 seconds, the whole airport seemed to go silent. The wheels of suitcases, the boarding calls, the crying child behind her, the low hum of hundreds of strangers moving through glass and steel, all of it faded behind one impossible image. Nathan Whitmore was supposed to be in Singapore on a business trip. He had sent Clara a photo that morning from what he called an airport lounge overseas. He had written, "Long meetings today. Do not wait up." Then he had added a tired little heart, the kind of symbol he used when he wanted credit for affection without the inconvenience of actually giving any. Clara had believed the trip was real because she had no reason to waste her life doubting every word he said. Trust, she had once thought, was a form of respect. Now Nathan stood 20 yards away in Terminal 4, wearing the charcoal coat she had bought him for their anniversary, one hand on the waist of a woman in a red travel dress. The woman leaned into him with practiced ease. She had a designer suitcase, glossy hair, and the sharp smile of someone who thought public spaces turned sin into romance if the lighting was good enough. Clara's parents were not yet through the doors. They were still somewhere behind customs, carrying gifts from their anniversary trip, expecting their daughter to wave, hug them, and drive them home. Instead, Clara stood near the metal barrier with a bouquet of white lilies in one hand and her phone in the other, watching her marriage step off a lie and into fluorescent light. Nathan kissed the woman again. Not a quick mistake, not a farewell. A kiss with familiarity, with ownership, with the lazy confidence of a man who believed his wife was safely somewhere else. The woman laughed and brushed something from his lapel. Clara recognized the gesture before she recognized the woman. It was intimate in the way small habits are intimate. The woman had done this before. Nathan had allowed it before. The betrayal was not arriving today. It was merely being caught. Clara's fingers tightened around the bouquet until the paper crackled. She did not cry. Her face went pale, but her spine stayed straight. She had inherited that from her mother, who always said panic was expensive and should be spent only when it could buy survival. Clara felt the first burning wave of humiliation rise up her throat. Then she swallowed it. There were too many people around, too many cameras, too many reflective glass walls, and most importantly, too many details worth remembering. The woman in red lifted her phone and took a selfie with Nathan. Nathan smiled into the camera as if the world had been built for his convenience. Clara noticed the black VIP luggage tag hanging from the woman's suitcase. She noticed the gold card in Nathan's hand. She noticed the private arrivals corridor behind them, the one most travelers never used. She noticed the airport hospitality staff member standing nearby, waiting for Nathan's signal. Her heartbeat slowed. That corridor belonged to the executive reception program at Hartwell International Airport. Her mother's family had helped build the original terminal 40 years ago. Clara's private office had recently approved the renewal of the airport's premium guest service contract. Nathan knew that, but not enough. He thought Clara had a sentimental family connection and a few dusty shares. He did not know she controlled the trust that owned the hospitality company managing the VIP corridors, lounges, and private transfer desks he loved to pretend were his natural environment. Nathan had brought another woman through Clara's airport privileges. The thought did not make her shout. It made her still. Her phone buzzed. A message from Nathan appeared at the top of the screen. Boarding. Soon. Bad connection after this. Love you. Clara looked from the message to the man standing in front of her in the same terminal. He slid his phone into his pocket after sending the lie, then turned back to the woman in red with an indulgent smile. She touched his cheek, and he lowered his head toward her again. Clara took one photo. Not for heartbreak. For evidence. Then she turned slightly, positioning herself behind a family holding balloons, and waited for her parents to come through the arrivals doors. Her mother's first glimpse after a 12-hour flight would not be of Nathan and his mistress if Clara could help it. There are some humiliations a daughter should not hand to her parents at the airport unless there is no other choice. The doors opened. Passengers began to stream out. Clara saw her father first, tall and silver-haired, pushing a cart stacked with suitcases. Her mother walked beside him in a camel coat, graceful despite fatigue, scanning the crowd until she found Clara. Her face brightened. Clara smiled back. It took effort, but she did it well enough that her mother did not stop walking. When they embraced, Clara closed her eyes for half a second. Her mother's perfume smelled like lavender and cold air from another country. Her father's hand patted her shoulder, warm and familiar. "Where is Nathan?" her father asked. Clara opened her eyes. Beyond his shoulder, Nathan was still laughing with the woman in red. "On a business trip," Clara said. The words tasted like metal. Her mother followed Clara's gaze before Clara could stop her. At first, confusion crossed her face. Then recognition. Then a terrible, quiet understanding that only mothers can carry without dropping it. She looked back at Clara, not at Nathan. That mercy almost broke Clara more than the kiss had. Clara lifted her chin. "Let us get your luggage to the car," she said. Her father turned, saw Nathan, and went very still. He did not speak. He did not march across the terminal. He only placed one hand over his wife's on the cart handle and looked at Clara for instruction. That was why Clara loved him. He knew the difference between defending his daughter and stealing her moment to decide. Nathan still had not seen them. The woman in red pointed toward the VIP exit. Nathan nodded and reached for her suitcase. He looked proud to carry it, as if service became masculine when performed for a mistress and tedious when expected by a wife. Clara watched them move toward the private corridor. Then she lifted her phone and sent one short message to the airport hospitality director. "Please confirm who authorized VIP arrival access for Nathan Whitmore and his guests today." She put the phone away before the reply came. The lilies in her hand were crushed at the edges, but not ruined. Clara adjusted the paper around them, smiled gently at her parents, and began walking toward the parking level. Behind her, her husband was still pretending to be overseas. By nightfall, he would learn that the airport had cameras, records, staff, and doors that opened only for people with real authority. And Clara Whitmore had all of them. Chapter 2. The drive home should have been full of stories from her parents' trip. Her mother had visited old friends in Lisbon. Her father had bought too many books and one absurd ceramic rooster he claimed was charming. Usually, Clara would have teased him, asked for every detail, laughed at the way her mother pretended not to enjoy his strange souvenirs. Instead, the car moved through late afternoon traffic with a heaviness that made even the turn signal sound too loud. Her father sat in the back beside the luggage, hands folded over his coat. Her mother sat in the passenger seat, looking out the window without really seeing the road. Clara drove with both hands on the wheel. Her wedding ring felt strangely noticeable, a small cold circle against her finger. No one mentioned Nathan for 15 minutes. That silence was not ignorance. It was respect. Clara knew her parents well enough to understand that their restraint came from love, not helplessness. They were not waiting because they were weak. They were waiting because the wound belonged first to her. Her phone buzzed in the cup holder. Clara did not look down until the car stopped at a red light. The reply from the hospitality director was brief. VIP access was requested by Mr. Nathan Whitmore using spouse-linked authorization. Guest registered as Ms. Vanessa Lane. Arrival Suite 3. Private transfer requested to the Meridian Crown Hotel. Clara read it once. Her face did not change, but her thumb pressed the side of the phone hard enough to whiten. Spouse-linked authorization. Nathan had not merely lied about his trip. He had used her name to give his mistress a private corridor, a lounge, and a luxury transfer while telling his wife he was boarding a plane. Her mother glanced at her. Clara locked the phone and placed it face down. "Clara," her mother said softly. Clara kept her eyes on the light. "Not yet." Her mother nodded. That was the only conversation they needed. At home, Clara helped carry the luggage inside the Whitmore townhouse. The house looked unchanged, which made the day feel more obscene. Nathan's shoes were still lined neatly near the hall closet. His favorite coffee mug sat in the drying rack. A framed photo from their wedding rested above the console table, both of them smiling beneath white roses. In the picture, Nathan looked proud to have married her. Or proud to be seen marrying her. Clara was no longer sure there had ever been a difference to him. Her parents settled in the guest suite. Clara made tea because movement was easier than collapse. She set cups on a tray, cut lemon slices, and listened to the kettle hiss. Her hands moved with the calm efficiency that had once made Nathan call her perfect. He had loved that word when it served him. Perfect wife. Perfect hostess. Perfect quiet support. Perfect woman to stay home while he traveled, smiled, networked, and lied. The first time Nathan had mentioned Vanessa Lane, he had called her a consultant. Smart girl, he said, too young for the old board members to understand. Clara remembered the tone. Admiring, dismissive, possessive before he had the right to be. Vanessa worked in travel branding and influencer partnerships. She was not famous, but she understood how to appear expensive in a photograph. Her social feed was full of airport lounges, champagne flutes, hotel mirrors, and captions about choosing herself. Clara had seen her once at a charity reception. Vanessa had shaken her hand and looked at her wedding ring before looking at her face. The second time Nathan mentioned Vanessa, he had criticized Clara in the same breath. Vanessa understands urgency, he said. You always make everything feel heavy. Clara had been approving a hospital transport grant that week. Heavy things had seemed worth taking seriously. After tea, her parents finally sat with her in the living room. Her father took off his glasses and cleaned them, though they were already spotless. Her mother held her cup with both hands. Clara spoke before either of them could ask. I saw enough. Her father's jaw tightened. Her mother lowered her eyes briefly, not in shame, but in the old grief of watching a daughter meet a pain you cannot intercept. Do you want us to stay? Her mother asked. Clara looked at the room. The soft chairs, the wool rug, the shelves Nathan had never dusted, but liked guests to admire. She imagined him walking in later with some story about flight delays and bad reception. She imagined him smiling at her parents, accepting their welcome, setting down his coat with the confidence of a man who thought truth had missed its flight. Yes, Clara said, but not for comfort. Her father looked up. For witness, she said. The words settled between them. At 7:30, Nathan texted again. Landed. Exhausted. Going straight to hotel. Call tomorrow? Clara sat at the kitchen island with her parents across from her and stared at the message. The lie was almost insulting in its laziness. He could not even maintain the fake time zone properly. Clara opened the airport confirmation, then the photo she had taken. Nathan's face was clear enough. Vanessa's red dress was unmistakable. The VIP corridor sign glowed behind them. She did not send the photo. Not yet. Instead, she replied with one sentence. Safe travels. Nathan answered with a heart. Her mother closed her eyes for 1 second. Her father stood and walked to the window, his shoulders hard beneath his sweater. Clara understood his anger. She also knew anger alone would give Nathan an easy story. Emotional wife. Protective parents. Private misunderstanding. He would try to make the scene smaller, messier, harder to understand. Clara would not let him. She opened her laptop and began gathering simple proof. Not complicated terms, not pages of dense records, just facts anyone could see. The message claiming he was boarding. The photo at Terminal 4. The VIP access record. The hotel transfer request. The guest name. The timestamps. The spouse-linked authorization. Each piece was plain. Each piece built a path from lie to abuse of privilege. Her mother watched quietly. Her father sat back down. Clara created a folder named Terminal 4. Then she sent a second message to the hospitality director. Please suspend spouse-linked guest access under Nathan Whitmore until further notice. The reply arrived within a minute. Confirmed. The first door closed. Clara leaned back, finally allowing herself one deep breath. It shook slightly at the end. Her mother reached across the island and covered her hand. Clara did not pull away. She let herself feel the warmth, the proof that not every hand reaching for her wanted to take something. At 8:15, Nathan called. Clara let it ring until it stopped. At 8:16, he called again. She looked at the screen, then at her parents. Now, she said, we let him wonder why the door stopped opening. Chapter 3, Nathan discovered the first consequence at the Meridian Crown Hotel, where he had planned to arrive with Vanessa through a private entrance and a name that made doors open softly. The plan had worked many times before. He liked the staff's lowered voices, the quick elevator, the feeling that ordinary people waited in lines while he moved through hidden routes. He told Vanessa it was because of his travel status. He never mentioned Clara. That evening, the private transfer car stopped at the hotel side entrance as requested. A doorman greeted them, A desk manager checked the tablet. Then his expression changed in the smallest possible way. Not rude, worse, neutral. Nathan noticed immediately. Men who live on privilege develop sharp senses for when it withdraws. The manager did not argue. He did not accuse. He simply directed them to the main lobby for standard check-in because VIP reception was no longer available under that authorization. Vanessa's smile thinned. Nathan laughed, claiming there was a mistake. The manager looked at the tablet again and offered the same instruction with professional calm. In the main lobby, Vanessa stood beside her suitcase while families, tourists, and conference guests moved around them. The red dress that had looked dramatic at the airport now looked overbright beneath the hotel lights. Nathan's coat hung open. His irritation showed at the collar, in the tight pull of his mouth, in the way he tapped his credit card against the counter. Vanessa whispered something. Nathan snapped back too quickly. A couple nearby glanced over. At the townhouse, Clara did not know these details yet, but she could imagine them well enough. She had seen Nathan lose the cushion of special treatment before. It always revealed him. Without soft lighting and staff smoothing the way, his charm became impatience. Without an audience already prepared to admire him, his confidence became entitlement. Her phone buzzed with his third call. This time she answered on speaker, placing the phone on the kitchen island between her parents. Her mother sat very still. Her father folded his arms. Nathan's voice came through controlled and sharp. "Clara, did you change something with the airport service?" "Oh, hello." No concern. No explanation for the fake business trip. Just outrage that a borrowed key no longer worked. Clara looked at the lilies she had placed in a vase. Their petals had opened despite being crushed at the edges. Yes. Silence. "Why would you do that?" he asked. She almost admired the audacity. "Because you used my access for Vanessa Lane while telling me you were overseas." The line went quiet except for a faint hotel lobby murmur behind him. Clara pictured him turning away from Vanessa, lowering his voice, trying to decide which lie still had legs. "This is not what you think," he said. Her father made a small sound of disgust, then stopped himself. Clara's voice remained even. "Then it should be easy to explain." Nathan exhaled. "Vanessa is part of the Singapore project. Her flight changed. I met her at the airport because it was convenient. You kissed her beside arrivals." Another silence, longer this time. "You were there?" he asked. There it was. Not remorse. Alarm at being seen. "I was picking up my parents," Clara said. The truth landed harder than accusation. Nathan knew her parents had seen him. He also knew they were in the room if Clara had chosen to mention them. The lobby noise behind him seemed suddenly louder. His voice softened, not with tenderness, but strategy. "Clara, please, we should talk privately. We are, not with your parents listening." Clara looked at her mother, then her father. Both held her gaze. Neither spoke. Their silence was steadier than any dramatic defense. "They saw you," Clara said. "They are not the problem." Nathan's control slipped. "Do not turn this into a family trial. You turned it into a public matter when you used my airport authorization for your mistress." The word mistress finally entered the room. Clara had not wanted it, but naming things is sometimes the first clean act after betrayal. Her mother closed her hand around her teacup. Her father looked at the floor, jaw rigid. In the hotel lobby, Nathan lowered his voice further. "Vanessa is standing right here." "Then speak carefully," Clara said. For once, Nathan had no quick answer. Vanessa said something in the background. Clara could not hear the words, only the tone. Anxious, impatient, less glossy than before. Nathan muffled the phone, then came back. "I am coming home," he said. "No." The word was soft. It still stopped him. "What do you mean, no? You are not entering this house tonight." "Clara, do not be ridiculous." She looked around the kitchen, his mug in the rack, his jacket on the chair, his life arranged inside spaces he had treated as guaranteed. "The door code will be changed in 10 minutes. Your personal items will be packed tomorrow. You may send a time for collection." Nathan laughed once, disbelieving. "You cannot throw me out of my own home." Clara's expression did not change. "It is not your home." Her father looked up sharply. Her mother did not. She had known, of course. The townhouse had been purchased by Clara before the marriage through her family trust. then kept in her name because her father had insisted love did not require foolish paperwork. Nathan knew the house was hers on paper. He had simply believed paper mattered less than his confidence. The line became very quiet. "You are making a mistake," Nathan said. "No," Clara said. "I made one years ago. I am correcting it." She ended the call. Her hands were cold afterward. She placed them flat on the counter until the tremor passed. Her mother stood, walked around the island, and embraced her without saying a word. Clara allowed herself to lean into the hug for exactly 3 breaths. Then she stepped back. There was still work to do. The door code changed at 8:30. The airport access closed at 8:32. The hotel account linked to her family hospitality program removed Nathan at 8:40. Each action was simple, clean, and understandable. No speeches, no technical maze, just keys returning to their rightful owner. At 9, Nathan sent a photo. It showed his suitcase in the hotel lobby and Vanessa sitting stiffly on a sofa behind him, arms crossed, eyes bright with fury. The message beneath it read, "Are you happy now?" Clara looked at it for a long moment. Then she typed nothing. Some questions do not deserve the dignity of an answer. Chapter 4. By morning, Nathan had found a new tone. He had moved from outrage to wounded reason, which Clara recognized as his favorite costume when anger failed. His messages arrived in careful paragraphs. He admitted the situation looked bad. He insisted nothing meaningful had happened. He claimed he had felt lonely, misunderstood, under pressure. He reminded Clara of their years together, of their shared friends, of how ugly divorce could become if families got involved. He did not apologize for using her name. That omission told Clara where the real center of his world remained. She read the messages while standing in the guest room doorway, watching her parents unpack. Her mother carefully placed gifts on the dresser. Her father removed the ceramic rooster from layers of paper and set it on the nightstand with solemn pride. The absurdity of it nearly made Clara smile. Life is strange that way. A marriage can split open, and a painted rooster can still look ridiculous enough to tug a person toward laughter. Her mother noticed the phone in Clara's hand. "Is he asking forgiveness?" Clara looked at the screen. Nathan had just written, "You know how hard I have worked to build my reputation." "No," she said. "He is asking for management." Her father snorted softly. Clara left them to rest and went downstairs. The house felt alert, like it knew its own locks had changed. On the dining table, she spread the proof in printed form, not because she needed paper, but because paper made lies look less slippery. A message claiming business travel. A photo at Terminal 4. VIP access record. Hotel transfer. Guest name. Door code change confirmation. Each page was simple enough that no one could pretend confusion. At 10, Vanessa called. Clara stared at the unknown number for 2 rings, then answered. Vanessa's voice arrived thin and defensive. "I think we need to speak woman to woman." Clara looked at the printed photo of Vanessa leaning into Nathan under the arrivals sign. The phrase woman to woman had a way of appearing only after one woman had helped a man harm another and wanted a softer landing. "No," Clara said. She ended the call. Vanessa sent a message immediately after. "Nathan told me you were separated." Clara did not reply. A second message followed. He said the airport access was his company benefit. Clara took a screenshot. A third message arrived. "You do not understand what he promised me." Clara almost answered then, not from sympathy but from curiosity. What had he promised? A future? A condo? A public launch after the imaginary separation? A seat beside him in lounges funded by his wife? Clara could picture Vanessa at the airport, red dress bright, believing the private corridor proved she had been chosen by a powerful man. How small the prize looked once the door no longer recognized his name. She saved the messages and placed the phone down. At noon, Nathan arrived at the townhouse anyway. The doorbell camera showed him standing on the step in yesterday's coat, hair combed but tired, face arranged for the person he expected to answer. He carried flowers. Not lilies, not Clara's favorites, but a lavish mixed bouquet wrapped in black paper, the kind sold in hotel lobbies for men who wanted apology to look expensive. He pressed the bell twice. Clara watched from the hallway screen. Her father appeared behind her, silent. Her mother came from the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel. Nathan looked into the camera and softened his expression. "Clara," he said through the intercom, "open the door, please." The word please had rarely appeared in his mouth unless he needed something. Clara pressed the talk button. "Leave the flowers on the step and go." He glanced toward the street, embarrassed by the possibility of neighbors. "I am not doing this outside." "Then do it nowhere." His face tightened. "This is childish." Her father moved as if to speak, but Clara lifted one hand. He stopped. She appreciated him fiercely in that moment. Nathan lowered his voice. "I know your parents are there. I know they are angry. But this is our marriage." Clara looked at the screen. "Our marriage was in the airport yesterday. You brought Vanessa to it." The words made him flinch. "Good. Not enough, but good." "I made a mistake," he said. "You made plans." He had no answer ready for that. The bouquet drooped slightly in his hand. A neighbor passed on the sidewalk, slowed, recognized him, and kept walking with theatrical discretion. Nathan's humiliation finally entered his posture. His shoulders stiffened, his jaw shifted. "If you lock me out, people will ask questions," he said. "They should." He stared at the camera. For the first time, Clara saw fear. Not fear of losing her. Fear of losing the version of himself that other people believed in. It made the last trace of softness inside her fold away. Nathan placed the bouquet on the step with excessive care. Then he leaned close to the camera. "You will regret making this public." Clara's mother inhaled sharply. Clara pressed the button again. "You made it public when you kissed her at arrivals." Then she cut the intercom. Nathan remained on the step for another minute. He looked at the closed door as if trying to intimidate Wood. Finally, he turned and walked away, leaving the flowers behind like evidence of a gesture that had failed to become redemption. Clara did not bring them inside. An hour later, rain began. The bouquet darkened on the step, black paper sagging, expensive petals bending underwater. Clara watched through the window for a moment, then turned away. Some apologies are not flowers. Some are just decorations placed over consequences. Chapter 5. Nathan's next move was predictable. By late afternoon, 3 mutual friends had texted Clara with cautious concern. They had heard there had been a misunderstanding. They had heard Nathan was devastated. They had heard Clara's parents were influencing her while she was emotional. The messages were polite, but the shape beneath them was familiar. A man had injured his wife in public, then rushed to gather witnesses before she could speak plainly. Clara answered none of them at first. She spent the afternoon at Hartwell International Airport. The terminal looked different when she entered, without flowers, without the bright task of collecting family, without the shock of Nathan's body leaning toward another woman. It looked like a system. Glass walls, moving walkways, polished floors, cameras tucked into black domes, staff guiding people through stress with rehearsed calm. Thousands of lives crossed here each day. Reunions, departures, confessions, delays, small miracles, private disasters. Clara had always loved airports for that reason. They made human drama visible without asking permission. She walked through the public arrivals hall first. Near the barrier, where she had stood, a family waited with balloons. A young man held a sign for someone named Mia. A tired grandmother slept beside a suitcase. Life had already moved over the spot where Clara's marriage split open. That comforted her. Pain feels enormous inside the body. The world reminds you it is not the only thing happening. The hospitality director met her near a side office. He was a reserved man named Adrian Shaw, efficient and discreet. He did not waste words, which Clara appreciated. He handed her a slim folder with a printed summary of Nathan's recent use of spouse-linked services. Clara opened it while standing beside a window overlooking the runways. There were 7 entries. 7. Not one mistake. Not one impulsive airport meeting. 7 uses of private arrivals, lounge access, transfers, or hotel links connected to Vanessa Lane over the past 6 months. Each entry carried Nathan's request and Clara's authorization path, used without her knowledge because she had allowed spouse convenience for legitimate travel. The dates lined up with business trips, late meetings, charity overnights, and one weekend when Nathan had said he needed solitude to think through a company problem. Clara read each line. Her expression stayed smooth, but the world seemed to narrow around the paper. The humiliation at Terminal 4 had not been a discovery. It had been the 8th chapter. Adrian stood silently beside her. He did not explain systems. He did not bury her in procedure. The facts were enough. Clara closed the folder. Remove every personal guest privilege tied to my household. Adrian nodded. Add a written approval requirement for any future private access under my name. Another nod. And send me the clean record copies. He handed her a drive. No speeches. No moral commentary. Good. Clara had no appetite for other people's outrage when her own needed careful storage. Before leaving, she asked to see the private arrivals corridor. Adrian escorted her through a staff door. The corridor was quiet, lined with pale wood and soft lights. This was where Nathan had walked with Vanessa, away from ordinary travelers, believing secrecy was a luxury included with the room. Clara stopped by Arrival Suite 3. Inside were cream chairs, fresh flowers, chilled water, and a mirror large enough for Vanessa to admire herself before stepping into the public world as a chosen woman. Clara looked at the mirror. For 6 months, this room had reflected a lie built from her name. She stepped inside and removed the flowers from the table. They were red roses, probably the standard arrangement. She handed them to Adrian. No red flowers in this suite for the next month, she said. It was small. Petty, perhaps. Human. Adrian took them without comment. On the way out, Clara passed the exact stretch of floor where Nathan had kissed Vanessa. She did not stop. The place no longer owned her. At home, she finally answered the mutual friends with 1 image and 3 lines. The image showed Nathan and Vanessa at Terminal 4 beneath the arrivals sign. The lines read, Nathan was not overseas. He used my airport access for Vanessa Lane. My parents and I saw them. No accusation beyond what could be seen. No emotional paragraph. No invitation to debate. The replies came quickly. Shock. Apologies. One friend wrote only, I am sorry. Another did not reply at all, which told Clara more than enough. Nathan called 5 minutes later. She did not answer. Then he sent a message. Why are you humiliating me? Clara looked at the words with a strange calm. Men like Nathan often treated exposure as the injury and betrayal as the private weather that caused it. He could humiliate her at the airport, lie to her parents, misuse her name, and bring another woman through her doors. But the moment she allowed others to see it, he became the victim of humiliation. She typed one reply. I am not humiliating you. I am removing the cover. Then she blocked him for the night. That evening, her parents joined her for dinner at the kitchen island. Her father cooked badly but earnestly, producing pasta slightly overdone and sauce too peppery. Her mother opened a bottle of wine and poured Clara only half a glass without asking. They spoke about Lisbon, about the ceramic rooster, about a neighbor's new dog, about everything except Nathan, until Clara laughed at something her father said, and the sound surprised all 3 of them. Her mother smiled with tears in her eyes. Clara realized then that the day had not been only loss. It had also been the first evening in years when she did not have to arrange the room around Nathan's mood. That, too, was evidence. Chapter 6. Vanessa broke first. The next morning, Clara received a message from an unfamiliar email address with the subject line, Please read before Nathan lies more. Clara stared at it for a full minute before opening it. Inside were screenshots, travel confirmations, hotel selfies, and a short note written without polish. Nathan told me you had an arrangement. He said your marriage was only for appearances. He said you knew about me but wanted privacy. I believed what suited me. I am not innocent. But he is now saying I stalked him and used his name. That is not true. Clara read the note twice. The sentence I believed what suited me stayed with her. It was the closest thing to honesty Vanessa had offered. Not enough to erase anything. Enough to be useful. Attached to the email was a screenshot of Nathan telling Vanessa to use the private corridor because my wife never checks these things. Another showed him joking that Clara's family loved old-fashioned discretion, so no one would ask questions. A third showed Vanessa asking whether Clara really knew. Nathan had replied, She knows what I need her to know. Clara sat very still. That line was worse than the kiss. She knows what I need her to know. It contained the whole marriage in 7 words. Nathan had not merely lied. He had considered her awareness something he managed, rationed, and edited. He had treated truth as a room she could enter only when he opened the door. Clara saved the email to the Terminal 4 folder. She did not thank Vanessa. Not yet. Gratitude can be confused with forgiveness when people are desperate for absolution. Vanessa had sent the truth because Nathan's protection had turned into blame. Still, the truth mattered. Motives do not have to be pure to make evidence useful. At noon, Nathan's company announced an emergency leadership meeting scheduled at the airport conference center. Clara knew because the center belonged to the same hospitality group her trust controlled, and a request came through asking whether Nathan's reservation should remain active after his access suspension. She read the request with a slow, humorless understanding. Of course. Nathan had chosen the airport for his meeting because he wanted symbolism. Travel, business, movement, authority. He planned to gather his team, explain that a personal matter had been exaggerated, and present himself as steady before rumors hardened. He had forgotten that the building itself now carried Clara's record of the truth. She did not cancel the meeting. Cancellation would let him claim sabotage. She approved the room and removed every private courtesy attached to his name. Standard entrance. Standard check-in. No private lounge. No discreet elevator. No staff smoothing his path from curb to conference. Then she made one more decision. She would attend. Not to shout, not to beg, not to perform pain for his colleagues. She would attend because Nathan had used her airport access to create the lie, and he intended to use the airport again to repair it. Clara would not let him borrow the scene twice. Her parents wanted to come. Clara refused gently. They had already been made witnesses to the betrayal. They did not need to be extras in the correction. Her mother understood. Her father disliked it. But he understood too. At 3, Clara dressed in a dark green suit Nathan had once said made her look too serious. She pinned no jewelry to her lapel. She wore her hair low at the nape of her neck, her face clean, her mouth calm. In the mirror, she did not look like a woman going to confront her husband. She looked like a woman going to reclaim a key. The airport conference center occupied the upper level of Terminal 4, behind glass walls overlooking the runways. By the time Clara arrived, Nathan's senior team had gathered near the meeting room. Some recognized her and looked away too quickly. Others smiled awkwardly. Rumor had clearly arrived before her. Nathan stood by the door speaking to 2 executives. When he saw Clara, his face changed in layers. Shock first, then anger, then a quick attempt at charm because people were watching. Clara, he said, this is not the right time. She stopped in front of him. It is the right place. The executives went silent. Nathan stepped closer, lowering his voice. Do not do this. She looked at him, at the man who had sent business trip messages from the same terminal where he kissed another woman, at the man who believed her silence was a resource he could spend. I am attending the first 10 minutes. This is a company meeting. In my conference center. The words were quiet. They still moved through the group like a dropped glass. Nathan's face drained slightly. He had known, in a distant way, that Clara's family had airport interests. He had not known enough to understand that the room he rented, the lounge he loved, the corridor he misused, and the premium service he flaunted all connected back to structures Clara could actually touch. That was the problem with borrowed power. The borrower rarely studies the owner. Inside the room, Clara sat at the far end of the table. She did not take the head chair. She did not need to. Nathan began the meeting with a forced smile and a statement about privacy. His voice was smooth at first. He said there had been misinformation. He said his marriage was going through a difficult period. He said outside parties had misunderstood travel arrangements. Clara let him speak until he used the word misunderstood for the second time. Then she placed one page on the table. It was the photo from Terminal 4 printed cleanly, with the timestamp beneath it. No explicit detail. No emotional caption. Just Nathan kissing Vanessa at arrivals when he had claimed to be boarding overseas. The room did not erupt. It tightened. Clara placed the second page beside it. VIP access requested under spouse-linked authorization. Guest, Vanessa Lane. Destination, the Meridian Crown Hotel. That was enough. Nathan's mouth opened. Nothing useful came out. Clara stood. The airport hospitality group will not be used to hide personal misconduct. Your company may continue this meeting under standard terms. My name is no longer available to support your lies. She left before he could answer. The most satisfying part was not his face, though his face had gone the color of old paper. It was the silence of the executives as she walked out. No one stopped her. No one defended him. No one needed a long explanation. Outside the glass wall, planes lifted into the afternoon sky. For the first time since Terminal 4, Clara felt something inside her lift, too. Chapter 7. Nathan's company did not collapse that day. Clara had no desire to destroy employees who had not kissed anyone under an arrivals sign. But Nathan's role changed with astonishing speed once people understood the difference between a private affair and public misuse of access. He was asked to step away from client-facing travel partnerships. Then he was removed from a hospitality campaign he had claimed to lead. Then his board requested a review of expense records connected to airport services. The word review sounded mild. Nathan knew better. He called Clara 22 times in one afternoon. She did not answer. By evening, Vanessa's name had spread through private business circles. She deleted several airport photos from her social media, which only made people search harder. Screenshots appeared of her posing in lounges that were never hers to enter, under captions about women who manifest luxury. The internet, when bored and righteous, can turn a caption into a courtroom. Clara did not participate. She had no interest in feeding the crowd more than the truth required. Still, Vanessa sent another message. I did not know the access was yours. Clara read it while sitting in the living room with her mother. Her father had fallen asleep in an armchair, one book open on his chest. Rain tapped the windows. The townhouse felt calm, though the world outside their small circle had become loud. Clara typed back for the first time. You knew he had a wife. Vanessa did not reply for an hour. Then, yes. That one word did not make things right. It did make them clearer. The next morning, Nathan sent a letter through a lawyer. It accused Clara of damaging his reputation, blocking access to shared services, and creating unnecessary public embarrassment. The letter was written in the stiff language of people trying to make consequences sound like attacks. Clara read it at the kitchen table, then placed it in the folder. She did not panic. There were records. There were timestamps. There were property documents. There were emails from Nathan himself. More importantly, the facts were understandable. He had lied, used access tied to her name, and been seen. The reply from Clara's side was short. Nathan could collect his personal belongings by appointment. He could communicate through formal channels. He could not enter the townhouse, use the airport services, represent access as his own, or contact her parents. No threats, no heavy words, just boundaries. Nathan hated boundaries most when they were written clearly. He appeared 2 days later to collect his belongings, accompanied by a moving service and a representative. Clara was not alone. Her father sat in the study reading with the door open. Her mother arranged flowers in the dining room with deliberate calm. A house manager supervised the movers. Clara stood near the stairs, hands folded loosely, wearing a cream blouse and dark trousers. Nathan entered the foyer like a man visiting a museum that used to hang his portrait. He looked around at the walls, the console table, the rug, the wedding photo now removed from its frame. His eyes paused on the blank space. Clara watched the pause and felt nothing dramatic. No triumph, no ache sharp enough to bend her, only recognition. The house had already begun forgetting him. He approached her with his coat over one arm. Are you really going to stand there like I am a criminal? She looked at him. You are here to collect your things. Clara. Her name sounded different in his mouth now, less like affection, more like a key he kept trying in a changed lock. You are letting your parents turn you against me, he said. Her father looked up from the study. He did not speak. The silence carried weight. Clara's eyes stayed on Nathan. My parents watched you kiss Vanessa at the airport. You did the turning yourself. He flinched at the bluntness. For years, she had softened sentences around him. It had made him lazy. The movers carried boxes from the upstairs closet, suits, shoes, sports equipment, framed awards Nathan had bought himself after being listed in a regional business magazine. Each item passed through the hall like a small evacuation of ego. Nathan watched, jaw tight. You will miss this life, he said. Clara almost smiled. Not because it was funny, but because it was so perfectly Nathan. Even at the end, he thought the life was him. He did not see the house, the parents, the work, the airport, the quiet evenings, the foundation projects, the books, the lilies, the locks, the rooms that had been peaceful whenever he was away. He thought he was the life because he had been loudest inside it. No, she said. I will miss who I thought you were. That is different. For a second, his face opened. The sentence reached some unarmored part of him. Then pride shut it again. Vanessa called while he was standing there. Her name lit his phone screen. Clara saw it. Nathan saw her see it. The room became painfully still. He declined the call. Clara looked away first, not because it hurt, but because it no longer mattered. When the movers finished, Nathan lingered by the door. The flowers he had left in the rain 2 days earlier were gone. The step was clean. The house did not look wounded. This is not over, he said. Clara nodded once. For you, maybe. Then the door closed behind him. Her mother came into the foyer and placed a fresh vase of white lilies on the console table. No one commented on the symbolism. None was needed. Chapter 8. The public scene Nathan feared arrived 1 week later at the annual airport development dinner, an event he had insisted on attending before everything fell apart. He had fought to keep his invitation, claiming that removing him would draw more attention. The committee, eager to avoid scandal, allowed him to come as a regular guest. Clara attended as the representative of the Whitmore Trust's hospitality arm, though most guests did not yet understand what that meant. The dinner was held in a glass atrium overlooking the runways. Planes moved in the distance like lit ships crossing a dark sea. Tables were set with blue linen and low silver lamps. Screens displayed images of new family waiting areas, accessibility upgrades, and staff training programs. The event was not glamorous in a celebrity way. It was polished, civic, useful. Exactly the kind of room Nathan liked to enter as if he had built it. Clara arrived alone. She wore a black dress with a narrow neckline and a white coat over her shoulders. Her hair was swept back. Her face was calm, though beneath the calm lived the memory of the arrival's gate, her parents' silence, the hotel lobby photo, the 7 access records. She did not suppress the memory. She carried it properly, like a sealed document. Nathan arrived 10 minutes later with Vanessa. The room noticed. Vanessa wore pale gold, a softer choice than the red travel dress, perhaps meant to suggest innocence. She kept one hand on Nathan's arm and her chin slightly lifted. But she no longer looked triumphant. Her eyes moved too often, checking faces, measuring whispers. Nathan looked polished but strained, smiling at people who greeted him with caution rather than warmth. Clara had expected him to come alone. Bringing Vanessa was either arrogance or desperation. Perhaps both. He wanted to prove the affair was legitimate now, that the scandal was merely the messy beginning of a new public couple. Men like Nathan often believe that if they stand beside the damage long enough, it becomes a decision. At the reception, he guided Vanessa toward a group of investors. Clara watched from across the room as he laughed too loudly. Vanessa leaned into him on cue. The performance might have worked months earlier. Now people looked at her and saw Terminal 4. They looked at him and saw the message claiming he was overseas. The story had attached itself to their bodies. When dinner began, the seating chart delivered the first quiet blow. Nathan and Vanessa were placed at a side table near the service entrance. Clara's name card sat at the central table beside the airport authority chair. Nathan noticed immediately. His face tightened. Vanessa stared at the chart, as if waiting for it to apologize. Clara took her seat without looking at them. The program opened with a short video about improving airport experiences for families, elderly travelers, and passengers under stress. Clara watched clips of parents carrying sleeping children, staff helping wheelchair users, reunion hugs at arrivals. She thought of her own parents coming through those doors and finding their daughter standing in the middle of a betrayal. Airports held joy and cruelty with the same fluorescent patience. That was why rules mattered. Access mattered. The people who used private systems casually rarely understood how public spaces could wound those without protection. Halfway through the program, the host announced a new policy for executive guest access. The language was simple. No borrowed spousal authorization. No unnamed guests. No private corridor use without direct approval. No exceptions for status. The room responded with polite applause. Most guests heard it as good governance. Nathan heard it as a public lock turning. His face darkened. Vanessa whispered something. He ignored her. Then Clara was invited to speak. She walked to the stage under a wash of clean white light. She did not look at Nathan. She looked at the staff tables first. The people in uniforms, headsets, badges, sensible shoes. The people who actually made the airport feel humane, while men like Nathan treated access as a personal crown. Her speech was brief. She spoke about trust in public spaces. She spoke about how private service should never become private entitlement. She spoke about protecting staff from being pressured by names that sounded important. She did not mention Nathan. She did not need to. The room understood enough. Near the end, she paused and looked toward the arrivals hall visible through the glass below. An airport is where people come home, she said. No one should use that feeling as cover for a lie. The room went silent, then applauded. Not wildly. This was not a theater. But the applause was clear, sustained, and pointed. Nathan sat frozen near the service entrance. Vanessa looked down at her plate. After the speech, Clara returned to her table. Several guests stopped her quietly throughout the evening, not to gossip, but to thank her for clarifying the policy. A staff supervisor smiled at her with visible relief. That meant more than applause. Nathan intercepted her near the atrium exit at the end of the night. Vanessa hovered behind him, pale and rigid. That speech was aimed at me, he said. Clara adjusted the white coat over her arm. If it fit, that was your choice. His eyes flashed. You always were good at sounding noble while being cruel. She looked at him for a moment. The old Clara might have tried to prove she was not cruel. She might have softened, explained, given him room to feel less exposed. The woman standing in the atrium no longer auditioned for fairness before the unfair. Cruelty was kissing another woman while my parents came through arrivals, she said. Policy is what happens after. Vanessa closed her eyes briefly. Nathan had no answer. Clara walked away through the glass doors. Behind her, the atrium reflected lights, tables, and a man discovering that a public room can be polite while still refusing to protect him. Chapter 9. The separation became official in early spring. Not dramatic, not cinematic. Just signatures, schedules, inventories, and the strange practical work of dividing a life after the emotional truth has already done the cutting. Clara attended each meeting with the same calm she had brought to the airport dinner. Nathan attended with different faces, remorseful one day, indignant the next, exhausted when neither worked. He tried once to argue that Clara had benefited from his social visibility. The statement landed poorly in the room. Clara's representative placed a list of her family holdings, philanthropic projects, and airport responsibilities on the table without reading it aloud. Nathan stopped speaking for several minutes. He tried once to claim the townhouse had been their marital home and should remain accessible to him until final settlement. Clara produced the purchase records and the written agreement he had signed before the wedding, while joking that paperwork was unromantic. He had been happy to sign when he thought love made details irrelevant. Details become more romantic when they protect the person who trusted. He tried once to portray Vanessa as a business associate whose travel had been misinterpreted. Vanessa, perhaps tired of carrying his version, sent confirmation that their relationship had been personal for months. She did not ask Clara for anything in return. That made Clara respect the gesture slightly more. By then, Vanessa had lost much of what she had hoped to gain. Luxury travel brands stopped inviting her. Her follower count rose briefly, then curdled into mockery. She posted fewer photos. Once, she sent Clara a message saying she was leaving the city for a while and hoped one day to become the kind of woman who did not confuse being chosen with being valuable. Clara read it and did not reply. Some lessons must be lived without applause from the person hurt by the mistake. Nathan moved into a serviced apartment near his office. It had a view of a parking structure and excellent blackout curtains. A mutual friend mentioned it by accident, then apologized. Clara surprised herself by feeling no pleasure. Nathan had not become poor, not helpless, not destroyed. He had simply become ordinary in ways his pride found unbearable. No borrowed airport corridors. No wife smoothing rooms. No parents pretending not to see. No private doors opening because Clara's name stood quietly behind them. That was enough. One Saturday, Clara finally drove her parents to the airport for their return flight home. The trip had stretched longer than planned because they did not want to leave her alone too soon. Clara had not protested. Their presence had steadied the house, filled it with books, tea, badly cooked pasta, and the gentle irritation of people who love each other enough to rearrange cabinet shelves without permission. At Terminal 4, the same arrivals hall looked bright and ordinary. This time, they were at departures. Her father carried the ceramic rooster in his hand luggage, despite Clara's warning that security might question his taste. Her mother hugged Clara near the entrance, holding her a little longer than usual. "You do not have to be strong every minute," her mother said. Clara closed her eyes. "I know." She did know now, better than before. Strength was not the frozen face at arrivals. That had been control. Useful, necessary, temporary. Strength was also telling the truth, changing the locks, eating dinner, laughing at a ridiculous souvenir, sleeping alone without mistaking quiet for abandonment. Strength was allowing her parents to see her hurt without letting their anger drive the car. Her father hugged her next. "If he calls, I can answer in Portuguese and confuse him." Clara laughed, and he looked pleased with himself. After they passed security, Clara stood behind the barrier until they disappeared from view. A year earlier, she might have felt lonely watching them leave. Now she felt sad. Yes, but not unsafe. There is a difference. Sadness can sit beside you in the car. Unsafety drives. Before leaving, she walked to the arrivals level. She found the spot where she had stood with lilies in her hand. The barrier was the same. The sign above the doors flashed different flights. People waited with flowers, balloons, tired smiles, nervous hands. Clara stood there quietly for a minute. She did not see Nathan. She did not see Vanessa. She saw only the place where she had learned that betrayal, when exposed, does not have to become the center of the rest of your life. It can become a border, before that door, after that door. Her phone buzzed. A message from Nathan appeared. He had found another number to reach her. "I miss us." Clara looked at the words. They were almost beautiful if one ignored the person who sent them. "I miss us." People often miss what they could control more than what they loved. Nathan missed the version of them where Clara waited at home, accepted explanations, lent him dignity, and allowed his borrowed privileges to feel earned. She typed back one final message. "I miss myself more." Then she blocked the number and walked out of the airport into clear spring light. Chapter 10. 6 months after Terminal 4, Clara attended the opening of the airport's new family reception wing. It had been planned long before Nathan's scandal, but the policy changes gave the project new meaning. The wing included quiet seating for elderly travelers, a children's corner near arrivals, better signage, and a small support desk for families dealing with medical travel. Clara had pushed for the last part herself. The opening ceremony was modest. No grand red carpet, no self-important speeches. Staff members stood beside airport leaders, and several families who had helped test the space came with children climbing over their legs. Clara wore a pale blue suit and carried no flowers. She had learned that she did not need props to prove she belonged in a room. During the ribbon cutting, a little boy ran straight into the arrivals area toward his grandmother, who dropped her bag and bent with open arms. The whole crowd softened. Clara felt her throat tighten. Airports could be cruel, yes. They could expose lies under harsh lights. But they could also hold this: a child running toward love without doubt, an old woman laughing with both hands in the air, strangers smiling, because reunion is one of the few public joys no one has to explain. After the ceremony, the airport authority chair thanked Clara for her work. A few reporters asked about the access policy changes. Clara kept her answers clean. She spoke about accountability, staff protection, and travelers' dignity. She did not mention Nathan. His name had no place in the new wing. Near the support desk, she noticed a familiar figure, Vanessa. She stood at a distance in a plain gray coat, hair shorter now, no dramatic suitcase, no camera raised. For a moment, Clara considered leaving through another door. Then Vanessa approached slowly, stopping several feet away. "I am not here to make a scene," Vanessa said. Clara waited. Vanessa held out an envelope. These are the last records I had. I should have sent them earlier. Clara took the envelope, but did not open it. Vanessa's face looked different, without the constant effort to be admired. Still pretty, but less sharpened. I saw the new policy, Vanessa said. It is good. Clara nodded. Vanessa swallowed. For what it is worth, I am sorry I made your worst moment about winning. The apology was not perfect. Perfect apologies rarely come from imperfect people. But it named the harm more honestly than Clara expected. She looked at Vanessa for a long moment and saw not a rival, not a symbol, but a woman who had mistaken another woman's humiliation for proof of her own worth and paid for the mistake in public. Do not build your life around being chosen by a man who has to hide you, Clara said. Vanessa's eyes filled. She nodded once and left. Clara did not forgive her out loud. She did not need to. The absence of hatred was enough for the day. That evening, Clara went home to the townhouse. The rooms were quieter now, but they had changed. Her father's books had left faint gaps on the guest room shelf. Her mother's teacup still sat in the cabinet she had reorganized. The wedding photo frame had been replaced by a photograph of Clara with her parents at the airport after the opening, all three of them smiling. The ridiculous ceramic rooster visible in her father's tote bag. Clara made tea and sat by the window. The city moved below. No message from Nathan arrived. No explanation waited to be managed. No lie required her softness as cover. The quiet was no longer the quiet before bad news. It was the quiet after locks had been changed and a woman had remembered the sound of her own thoughts. She opened the Terminal 4 folder one last time. The photo of Nathan and Vanessa at arrivals still had power, but less than before. At first, it had been a knife. Then evidence. Then a map. Now, it was becoming history. Clara moved the necessary records into a sealed archive and deleted the duplicates from her desktop. She kept one printed copy in a file marked boundaries, not because she wanted to revisit the pain, but because memory is easier to respect when it has a proper place. Before bed, she removed her wedding ring from the small dish on her dresser. She had stopped wearing it weeks ago, but it had remained there like an unanswered question. She placed it in an envelope and sealed it. Not with anger. With completion. Then she slept. No airport dreams. No red dress, no arrival sign glowing above a kiss. Just sleep, deep and ordinary, the kind she had once taken for granted before marriage, taught her to listen for footsteps that might not come home. In the morning, sunlight entered the bedroom across clean sheets. Clara woke without reaching for her phone. She lay still for a moment, feeling the room around her, the house, the quiet, the day waiting without Nathan's mood attached to it. Then she smiled. It was small. It was hers. Chapter 11. A year later, Clara returned to Terminal 4 for her parents again. This time, she carried no lilies. Her father had forbidden flowers after claiming the old bouquet had clearly suffered under dramatic circumstances. Instead, Clara brought coffee for her mother and a paper bag of cinnamon pastries for her father, who insisted airport food tasted like delay. The arrivals hall was busy, bright, and unchanged in the way public places are unchanged even after they rearrange a life. Clara stood near the barrier, not far from where she had once seen Nathan. She felt the memory pass through her body, but it did not take the room with it. That was healing, she had learned. Not forgetting. Not pretending. Simply being able to stand where you were hurt and notice other things too. A child dropped a toy plane beside her shoe. Clara picked it up and handed it back. An older couple argued cheerfully about which carousel held their luggage. A young woman fixed her lipstick in the reflection of a dark window. The arrival's doors opened and closed, each time releasing another small wave of people into waiting arms. Her parents appeared near the back of a group from Madrid. Her father pushed the cart as if luggage were a military campaign. Her mother wore a red scarf and looked far too pleased with herself. Clara lifted the coffee cups in greeting. Her mother's face brightened. Her father pointed at the pastry bag before hugging her, which was exactly what Clara expected. This time, when her mother asked where the car was parked, no lie stood behind the question. No husband was supposed to be overseas. No mistress waited by a private corridor. No daughter had to swallow humiliation to protect her parents from the scene. They walked together toward the parking level. Her father complained about the flight. Her mother corrected his exaggerations. Clara laughed and took one suitcase from the cart. The ordinary rhythm of it felt luxurious. As they passed the private corridor, Clara glanced at the access sign. The new policy plaque was mounted beside it. Direct authorization required. Guest identity verified. Staff may refuse access without penalty. The language was plain, almost boring. Clara loved it. Boring rules are often the walls that keep other people's arrogance from entering your life. Her mother noticed her looking. Does it still hurt? Clara considered the question honestly. A little, her mother nodded. But it does not own the airport, Clara added. Her father, who had been pretending not to listen, cleared his throat. Good, because I need a pastry before I forgive this terminal for the baggage delay. Clara laughed again. On the drive home, the city rolled past in bright afternoon light. Her parents told stories from Madrid. Her father had bought another questionable ceramic object. Her mother had made a new friend in a museum cafe. Clara listened with the peaceful attention of someone no longer waiting for a hidden message to ruin the day. That evening, they ate dinner at the kitchen island. The townhouse felt full again, not because Nathan had returned, but because people who loved Clara were inside it without making her smaller. Her father placed the new ceramic object beside the old rooster. It appeared to be a lopsided blue fish. Clara stared at it until her mother started laughing. Later, after her parents went upstairs, Clara stood alone in the hall. The console table held fresh white flowers, a bowl for keys, and the framed photo from the family reception wing opening. The house had not erased Nathan by becoming empty. It had replaced him with proof of life. She thought of the woman she had been a year ago, standing at arrivals with crushed lilies and a phone full of lies. That woman had wanted to break, but did not have the privacy. She had wanted to scream, but chose to see clearly first. Clara felt tenderness toward her now. Not admiration, exactly. Tenderness. Survival often looks graceful from the outside and brutal from within. If she could speak to that woman, she would not tell her to be calm. Calm had already done enough work. She would tell her to trust what she saw, to let witnesses love her without taking over, to understand that a public betrayal does not make the betrayed person public property, to remember that losing a liar can feel like losing a life until the room clears and you realize how much of that life was made of waiting. Before going to bed, Clara opened the window. Night air entered the hallway. Somewhere in the guest room, her father laughed at something her mother said. Clara leaned against the window frame and let the sound settle in her chest. Nathan had once told her she made everything feel heavy. He had been wrong. She had been carrying what was heavy because he kept handing it to her. Now her hands were free. Chapter 12. Clara did not become a woman who hated airports. That surprised some people. Friends assumed Terminal 4 would always feel cursed. Nathan assumed in one of his later messages that never received an answer that she would avoid the place because it reminded her of him. Vanessa perhaps assumed the same. But Clara had no intention of surrendering an entire world of departures and returns to one man's cowardice. Instead, she worked there more often. She visited staff training sessions and listened more than she spoke. She approved better break rooms for hospitality workers because she had learned how easily powerful guests pressured quiet staff. She supported clearer signage because confusion often made travelers vulnerable to people who like to dominate chaotic spaces. She funded a small family waiting room near arrivals where elderly parents could sit comfortably while adult children fought traffic. None of these changes made headlines. That was fine. Clara had grown suspicious of work that needed applause to feel real. One afternoon, she walked through the new waiting room and saw a woman sitting alone with a bouquet in her lap. The flowers were yellow, bright, and nervous. The woman kept checking her phone, then the arrivals doors, then her reflection in the dark window. Clara recognized the posture. Hope with fear folded inside it. She did not interfere. Not every waiting woman is waiting for betrayal. Some are waiting for love, some for apology, some for parents, some for a future that may or may not arrive on time. Clara simply asked a staff member to bring the woman water. That was enough. At home, the final divorce papers arrived on a Friday morning. Clara signed them at the dining table while rain traced the windows. There was no dramatic music, no shattering glass, no sudden collapse. Just her signature, clean and legible, at the bottom of a page. When she finished, she sat there for a while with the pen in her hand. Divorce did not feel like victory. It felt like setting down a bag she had carried so long that her shoulders still ached after release. Her mother called that afternoon. Her father shouted from the background, asking whether Nathan had finally been returned to lost luggage. Clara laughed despite herself. Her mother scolded him, then asked quietly how Clara felt. Light, Clara said after thinking about it. And sad. Both. Both is honest, her mother said. That evening, Clara went to dinner alone at a small restaurant near the river. She ordered what she liked without imagining Nathan's commentary. She chose a table by the window. She watched people pass under umbrellas and did not feel abandoned. The waiter asked if she was waiting for someone. Clara smiled. No, she said, just me. The words did not ache, they opened. Months later, Nathan remarried no one. Vanessa rebuilt her life quietly in another city. Clara heard these things through the loose net of mutual acquaintances and felt only distant recognition, as if someone had mentioned a storm from a year when the roof had already been repaired. She wished them no grand suffering. Consequence had done its work. Her future did not require their endless punishment. What stayed with Clara was not Nathan's face at arrivals, not Vanessa's red dress, not even the shock of the kiss. What stayed was the moment after, when she chose to look closely instead of collapsing into the story they had prepared for her. She noticed the luggage tag, the corridor, the access, the message on her phone, the time, the place, the truth. That attention saved her from being trapped inside their version. That became the lesson she carried into every room afterward. When someone hurts you, they often hope pain will blur your vision. They hope shock will make you messy, and mess will make you easier to dismiss. But clarity can be a form of self-defense, not coldness, not cruelty. Clarity. The simple refusal to let another person's lie become fog around your own life. On the first anniversary of the divorce, Clara drove to the airport before sunrise. No one was arriving for her. No one was leaving. She parked, walked into Terminal 4, and bought coffee from a kiosk near arrivals. The hall was nearly empty, washed in pale early light. Cleaning staff moved quietly, screens updated. A few travelers slept on benches, coats folded under their heads. Clara stood near the glass and watched the runway turn gold. This was where she had been humiliated. This was where she had gathered proof. This was where doors had closed and better ones had been built. The airport was not a monument to betrayal anymore. It was a place of movement again. She took out her phone and deleted the last casual photo of Nathan from her camera roll, an old picture of him laughing at a restaurant before she knew what his laughter cost. She did not delete it angrily. She thanked the version of herself who had loved honestly, then let the image disappear. Outside, a plane lifted into the morning. Clara watched until it became a bright point in the sky. Then she turned away from the arrivals gate and walked toward the day that belonged to her. Chapter 13. 3 weeks after the divorce became final, Clara received an invitation she almost declined. Hartwell International wanted her to speak at a staff appreciation breakfast for the teams who worked arrivals, premium services, and family support. The request was modest. Only 10 minutes. No press required. Clara stared at the email longer than necessary because the word arrivals still held a small echo in her body. Then she accepted. Not because she wanted to become the woman from the airport story forever. She did not. But the people who worked inside that terminal had quietly carried the consequences of powerful guests for years. They deserved to hear from someone with authority that their judgment mattered more than a guest's expensive watch or impatient voice. Nathan had used politeness as a tunnel. Clara wanted to put lights in it. The breakfast took place before dawn in a staff conference room behind Terminal 4. No chandeliers, no polished gala tables. Just folded chairs, paper cups of coffee, trays of fruit, and people in uniforms coming off night shifts or preparing for early flights. Clara liked the room immediately. It had none of the vanity Nathan loved. Everything in it served a purpose. She stood at the front without notes. Through a narrow window, the runway lights shimmered in the dark. The staff looked tired, attentive, and slightly curious. Many of them knew pieces of the story. Some had probably been on duty the day Nathan walked Vanessa through the private corridor. Clara did not ask. She did not need confessions from people who had been trained to obey systems she had helped make too loose. Her speech was simple. She told them that no guest's title mattered more than the rules. She told them that hesitation under pressure was human, but reporting pressure would now be protected. She told them private access existed to make travel calmer, not to help anyone hide cruelty. She did not say Nathan's name. The absence felt deliberate and clean. At the end, she looked around the room. If someone tells you that their spouse will not mind, you are allowed to ask for the spouse's approval. A few people smiled. Some looked down, perhaps remembering moments when they had heard exactly that phrase and let it pass. Clara did not punish them with her gaze. Afterward, a young arrivals coordinator approached with a paper cup in both hands. She looked barely older than Vanessa, with dark circles under her eyes from the night shift. She did not make a speech. She only said she had been the one who checked Nathan's private transfer request that day and had assumed it was fine because his name had appeared before. Clara saw the shame in her face and understood that another woman's betrayal had become this young worker's burden too. Nathan had been careless not only with Clara, but with everyone he made complicit without their consent. The rule was unclear, Clara said. The coordinator swallowed. It is clear now. That was enough. Later, as Clara walked back through the service corridor, she passed the staff entrance to the private suites. The doors were closed. A new sign beside them listed the approval steps in plain language. Nothing dramatic, nothing beautiful, just the quiet architecture of a boundary. Clara touched the edge of the sign once, almost affectionately. On her way out, she saw a man arguing at the premium desk. He wore a tailored coat and the expression of someone used to getting exceptions before finishing sentences. A staff member listened, checked the screen, and shook her head with polite firmness. The man gestured toward the corridor. The staff member shook her head again. Clara stopped at a distance and watched. The staff member did not raise her voice. She did not apologize for the rule. She did not search the room for permission. After a moment, the man took his bag and left in the direction of standard check-in, irritated but defeated. Clara felt an unexpected warmth spread through her chest. The reversal was not always a husband exposed under bright lights. Sometimes it was a young employee standing behind a desk, saying no clearly because the system finally stood behind her. That morning, Clara did not think of Nathan as she drove home. She thought of the coordinator's face relaxing after being told the unclear rule had been fixed. She thought of the staff member refusing the entitled man. She thought of how many injuries begin with someone in power assuming a quiet person will absorb the discomfort for everyone else. Clara had absorbed enough. When she reached the townhouse, sunlight was just touching the windows. Her parents were not there. Nathan's things were gone. The house was silent. She made coffee, opened the curtains, and let the morning fill every room. The silence did not ask anything from her. Chapter 14. Nathan tried to return once more, not to the townhouse, but to the story. Clara learned this through a friend who sent her a link with a warning that she did not have to open it. Nathan had given a podcast interview about failure, reinvention, and the cost of being judged by one bad chapter. The title alone told Clara enough. Men who call repeated choices a chapter usually hope the reader will skip the plot. She opened it anyway. Nathan's voice sounded smoother than she expected. He had always been good with microphones. He spoke about ambition, loneliness, the pressure to perform, and how success can distort personal judgment. He admitted he had hurt people, but he kept those people faceless. He did not say Clara. He did not say Vanessa. He did not say parents at arrivals. He did not say airport access, 7 records, spouse-linked authorization, or the hotel lobby where his borrowed privilege stopped working. Instead, he spoke of growth. Clara listened while folding laundry. That helped. It is difficult for a man's self-mythology to become overwhelming when you are matching towels. Near the end, the host asked what he had learned. Nathan paused, then said he had learned that private pain should not become public spectacle. Clara folded a white towel in half, then in thirds, and looked at the phone on the counter. There it was again. He still believed the spectacle was the exposure, not the act. He still believed the worst thing about betrayal was that others had seen it clearly. Clara turned off the podcast. For a few minutes, anger tried to return in its old form. Hot, sharp, eager for correction. She could release the clean timeline again. She could write the sentence that would make people understand. She could remind everyone that Nathan had not suffered from public spectacle. He had created one under an arrivals sign, then lost control of the audience. But the urge passed, not because he deserved silence, because she deserved distance. That evening, she met her parents on a video call. Her father had placed both ceramic animals behind him like courtroom witnesses. Her mother asked why he had arranged them that way. He said the rooster and fish had strong opinions about Nathan. Clara laughed so hard she had to cover her face. When the laughter settled, her mother looked at her closely through the screen. "You heard the interview?" Clara nodded. "And?" "He still wants the story without the facts." Her mother smiled sadly. "Then let him have an empty story." The phrase stayed with Clara after the call ended. An empty story. That was exactly what Nathan had left. The people who needed the facts already had them. The systems that needed changing had changed. The house was hers. The airport access was clean. Her parents knew. Vanessa had stopped pretending. Nathan could sit in rooms and speak about growth as long as hosts would have him. The story he told no longer held Clara inside it. The next morning, she received an envelope from Vanessa. There was no dramatic apology this time, just a short note and a photograph. The photo showed the old red travel dress folded in a donation bin. The note read, "I do not want to keep costumes from the worst version of myself." Clara looked at the image with a complicated feeling she did not try to simplify. Vanessa had harmed her. Vanessa had also changed in whatever small, uneven way people sometimes change when consequences leave them no attractive exit. Clara did not need to become her friend, forgive her publicly, or guide her redemption. She could simply allow the fact that another woman was no longer trying to win by standing on her wound. She placed the note in the boundaries file, not as evidence, but as closure of a smaller door. That afternoon, Clara drove to the airport to review the family reception wing's first-year report. The numbers were good. Passenger complaints about premium access confusion had dropped. Staff incident reports were clearer. Families using the waiting room had increased. The support desk had helped arrange transport for medical travelers, elderly passengers, and parents flying alone with children. None of this would trend online. None of it would be turned into a dramatic headline. Yet each improvement felt like a quiet refusal to let Nathan's lie remain only damage. On the way back to her car, Clara passed a mirrored wall near departures. For a moment, she saw herself reflected among travelers rolling suitcases behind her. She looked older than the woman who had stood with lilies at arrivals. Not aged exactly. Sharper, kinder to herself, less available for other people's editing. She stopped long enough to recognize that woman. Then she kept walking. Chapter 15. In late summer, Clara hosted dinner for her parents and a few close friends in the townhouse garden. It was the first gathering she had held since Nathan left. For months, she had avoided hosting because the role felt contaminated. Nathan had loved her dinners when they helped his image. He liked her candles, her wine choices, her ability to remember everyone's dietary restrictions, her quiet work that made his charm look effortless. After he left, even the thought of setting a table made Clara feel used. But the garden was beautiful that evening. White lights hung from the trees. Her mother arranged flowers in low glass bowls. Her father was forbidden from cooking, but permitted to open bottles and give opinions no one requested. Friends arrived with bread, fruit, and the careful warmth people bring when they know a house is learning how to welcome again. Clara stood in the kitchen before the first guests came, looking at the long table through the open doors. For a second, she saw old parties. Nathan at the head of the table, telling stories slightly altered to make himself cleverer. Clara moving behind the scenes, filling glasses, smoothing awkward pauses, making sure everyone left believing he was generous. Her mother came in and stood beside her. "You are allowed to enjoy your own table," she said. Clara breathed out. "I am practicing." Good. The dinner was imperfect in ways that made it feel alive. Someone spilled wine. Her father knocked over a candle and blamed the blue ceramic fish. A friend told a story so funny that Clara laughed with her whole body, head tipped back, one hand pressed to her chest. No one looked surprised by her joy. That helped. Sometimes healing is not only being seen in pain, it is being seen in delight without anyone treating it as proof that the pain was small. After dessert, her father raised a glass. He did not make a grand speech. Clara had warned him. He looked at her, eyes warm, and said only, "To coming home." The table echoed it softly. Coming home. The phrase moved through Clara with unexpected force. For a long time, home had been a place she maintained while Nathan moved through the world borrowing status from her steadiness. Then home became the place he tried to enter after losing the right. Then it became quiet, half-empty, uncertain. Now, under garden lights, with friends laughing and her parents beside her, home became something else again. Not a reward for being chosen, not a stage for a marriage, a place where she did not have to shrink to keep peace. Later, after everyone left, Clara carried plates to the kitchen. Her mother tried to help, but Clara shooed her away. She wanted the ordinary aftermath, the crumbs, the glasses, the folded napkins, evidence of people who had come, eaten, laughed, and left love behind without taking pieces of her. Near midnight, she stepped into the garden alone. The air smelled of rain and roses. The table was cleared. The lights swayed slightly in the breeze. Clara thought of Terminal 4 again, not with pain exactly, but with gratitude for the moment she had chosen not to collapse into someone else's plan. Nathan had wanted her ignorant. Vanessa had wanted her broken. The first few witnesses had wanted discretion because discomfort makes cowards of polite people. Clara had chosen clarity, then boundaries, then restoration. None of it had been easy. None of it had been instant. But each choice had returned a piece of her life to her hands. The next week, she would fly alone for the first time since the divorce. Not for work, not for family, for herself. A small trip to the coast where her parents had once visited. She had booked a window seat, no lounge, no private corridor, no borrowed importance. Just a ticket in her own name and a bag she could carry without help. At the airport, she knew she might still glance toward arrivals. She might still remember. That was fine. Memory was not a chain unless she let it decide the direction of her feet. She looked up at the dark windows of the townhouse, at the room where Nathan's clothes had once hung, at the guest room where her parents had stayed through the worst days, at the kitchen where she had read evidence and learned to laugh again. The house stood quietly around her life, no longer waiting for anyone to approve its peace. Clara went inside and locked the door, not against love, against anything that called itself love, while requiring her disappearance. Chapter 16. The morning of Clara's solo flight arrived clear and blue. She woke before the alarm, not from anxiety, but from the strange brightness of doing something simply because she wanted to. Her suitcase waited by the bedroom door. It was small, dark green, and light enough for her to lift without shifting her balance. She packed 2 books, 1 dress, comfortable shoes, and no history that did not belong to her. At Terminal 4, the departure hall was busy with summer travelers. Families argued over passports. Businessmen checked watches. Couples leaned against each other in lines, some tender, some tired. Clara moved among them without needing to be invisible or impressive. For years, Nathan had made travel feel like performance. The right lounge, the right seat, the right greeting at the right desk. Now Clara stood in the regular security line with her boarding pass in her hand and felt oddly wealthy, in a way no private corridor had ever made her feel. She had nothing to prove. Near the premium entrance, a staff member recognized her and straightened slightly. Clara smiled and shook her head before the woman could offer special assistance. Today, she wanted the ordinary route. Shoes in the tray, laptop out, a small wait behind a family with too many bottles of sunscreen. The ritual soothed her. It reminded her that dignity did not require skipping every line. Sometimes dignity was standing exactly where you chose, without borrowing importance from a hidden door. After security, she bought coffee and walked to her gate. Through the windows, planes waited in sunlight. Clara sat near the glass and opened one of her books, but she did not read immediately. Her eyes moved across the terminal until they found the distant sign for arrivals below. From here, the place where she had once seen Nathan was barely visible, reduced by distance to a strip of light and movement. That felt right. Pain did not vanish. It became smaller when life grew larger around it. Her phone buzzed with a message from her mother. "Send a photo when you land. Your father says do not buy ceramic animals without supervision." Clara laughed quietly and typed back that she made no promises. Then she took a photo of the runway, not of herself, not as proof for anyone else, but because the morning looked clean. When boarding began, Clara joined the line. No one announced her name. No one opened a private door. No one carried her bag. She walked down the jet bridge with sunlight at her back, feeling the old airport, air around her, metal and coffee and perfume and departure. At the plane door, she paused for one heartbeat. The last time she had stood at this airport with a suitcase in view, someone else had tried to turn her trust into a joke. Today, she was leaving by choice, under her own name, toward a place no one had chosen for her. That was not revenge. It was better. It was return. Clara stepped onto the plane, found her window seat, and placed her bag overhead. As the aircraft rolled toward the runway, she watched Terminal 4 slide past the window. The glass walls flashed in the sun. Somewhere inside, people were arriving, waiting, lying, telling the truth, holding flowers, letting go, coming home. The plane lifted. Clara looked down until the airport became a small bright shape beneath the clouds. Then she turned toward the open sky. Subscribe for more stories about quiet women, hidden power, and the moment betrayal meets consequences.